very close to vegan. Um, I've had a lot of conversations with people over the years, both vegan, vegetarian, and animal meat based. It's been a lot of conversations. A lot of this topic is in one sense, a really hot topic right now. And there's a lot of interesting science and data that's coming out. And again, this is all information that the ancients had a really good understanding of. They had quite a good handle of it. And science is revealing some truths and helping us articulate these topics a little bit more clearly. So first of all, and so it's interesting because we have those that really believe that eating meat is essential for good health. And then we have, the plant-based community, or the vegans or vegetarians, or you could say plant-based oriented, that sort of come from an orientation that, meat is unhealthy and that we get too much protein. And then there's the meat-eating community, or you could say that emphasizes the importance of protein. And so the vegans criticize that, and the meat eaters criticize the vegans, and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to hone in on that a little bit. And first, I will say that, like I said, I'm a vegetarian, super close to vegan. There are situations where I will eat dairy products in like a temple or ashram environment, something like that. So it's an interesting subject. But first, let's look at what protein does. Okay, so we have protein, we have carbohydrates, we have fat. So protein is made up of amino acids, and the body has 8 essential amino acids, and that means those are amino acids that the body doesn't create. We need to get those amino acids through food. And when we eat any form of protein, whether it's animal-based or plant-based, basically it goes through a whole process: the chewing process, the acid in the stomach process, hydrochloric acid, the enzymes in the small intestine, especially proteolytic enzymes, which are protein cleaving enzymes. So what that means, you have a protein and you have to break down that protein into individual amino acids. And then once those amino acids are broken down, they get absorbed into the bloodstream, go to the liver, and the liver can store some of those amino acids, or it will distribute those amino acids anywhere and everywhere throughout the body. And what do those amino acids do, which make up proteins? They switch their configurations and amounts of particular amino acids, and also use other amino acids that are already in the body, that are stored in the body, and it creates tissue. So every single tissue in the body, whether it's bone, muscle, fat, reproductive tissue, enzymes, immune factors, hormones, everything in one sense is made by protein. So the tissues of the body, in Ayurveda there's 7 main tissues, they are all made by protein. So I'll just be direct here, for a vegan to say that protein is not important is not really looking at the whole picture. But again, for somebody who eats meat and emphasizes protein, we also have to understand that protein has to be digested, whatever it is, whether it's beans, nuts, seeds, or animal sources. We have to break it down into those amino acid parts so that then the body can utilize it. So part of the problem is, yes, typically I believe it's about the RDA recommends about 36 grams of protein a day per 100 pounds. And that's pretty reasonable. I think that's pretty reasonable. Some bodybuilders will use more. People that break down tissue a lot will require more protein because they're breaking down tissue and they need to build it. So this is all really important. Now, what we have to look at is how do we get protein in the most efficient, effective way? One of the big issues that we're running into these days is that people are needing more protein, but because they're, I'll rephrase that. People may need more protein because they're not digesting it properly. This is a huge issue. When people have a gut that has compromise for lots of reasons, whether it's antibiotics, whether it's stress, whether it's hormones, whether it's candida, whether it's a bacterial issue, whether it's fungal, whether it's parasites, whatever it may be, whether it's toxins, the liver's not functioning properly, it's not going to put out the bile properly. If the pancreas is not functioning properly, it's not going to put out those proteolytic enzymes efficiently. If we don't break down whatever kind of protein it is, whether it's plant-based or animal-based, we're not going to get those amino acids. And for some people who have damaged digestive tracts, they feel like, this isn't true in all cases, but they may feel like they need to eat more protein. And in one sense, what they're doing is they're throwing a lot of protein at the wall and only some of it sticking. So in some cases, somebody who says to me, I have to eat meat 5 times a day, and I have patients like that who say like that, a lot of it has to do because their guts are so damaged or their liver is so damaged, they're not actually absorbing, they're probably absorbing 10% of what they're eating in terms of protein. So number one is to get our digestive systems functioning much better, and then also getting our livers functioning much better and our pancreas functioning much better. So we get the whole digestive engine working better, then we will have more freedom about how much protein we really eat. And you know, if you're vegetarian or vegan, it is really important to make sure that your digestive system is functioning well enough so that you can extract those amino acids correctly. When you're eating a lot of meat, you're throwing, like I said, you're throwing a lot of protein at the wall, some of it sticking. The downside of that is that there's a lot of byproducts from eating meat that are damaging to the tissues in the body. Okay, we have acidic waste, we have, and something I'll go into right now is something called Mtor. And Mtor is a massive regulator of and metabolism of cellular growth in the body. So any kind of what's called anabolic or growth of the body is generally stimulated and controlled by Mtor. And meat, animal protein, tends to highly stimulate Mtor. And there are direct studies and correlations now that show too much Mtor, the highest levels of Mtor consistently throughout the day, relates to diseases like heart disease and cancer, and actually decrease longevity. So we know there's a connection between the stimulation of Mtor and premature or earlier death and cancer and other diseases. So, but the fact is we still want to build tissue. So I wanted to just create this perspective because, you know, living in this world, is, the Chinese had it perfectly, the yin and the yang. Maybe you've seen that symbol. It's never quite black and white. You know, when you eat a lot of protein, there can be a lot of die-off or a lot of, I call it, it's like the exhaust. When you use the engine in the car, you create a lot of exhaust, and that exhaust creates stress and toxicity in the body. So we don't want too much of that. But on the other hand, if we're not getting sufficient amounts of protein, and I don't mean too much, sufficient amounts that we're absorbing, then we won't build tissue effectively as we should be, or we could be. And again, coming back to that point, we need a good solid digestion. Otherwise, we're eating too much protein, throwing it at the wall, some of it sticking, but what's happening to the rest? It's causing stress on the system, in the blood, acidity, stress on the kidneys, stress on different organs in the body, and increasing mTOR so much that perhaps it will lead to very common diseases these days, blood sugar issues, diabetes, cancer specifically, and heart disease. So what do we do about this? What do we do about this? So again, improve digestion. The other thing is, I talked about last week about intermittent fasting. So the science is now coming out, when we eat, we increase mTOR, especially when we eat protein. Carbohydrates and fats will also increase protein to some degree. I mean, increase mTOR for sure. But protein, especially animal protein, will increase mTOR, which indicates its tissue building capacity. However, there's something called autophagy. Autophagy it happens when we fast 12, 15, 18 hours at a time. This is the beauty of intermittent fasting. So if we eat within an 8 to 10 hour period of the day and we're not eating for the rest of the time, we kick in different degrees of autophagy. And autophagy is this wonderful phenomena that allows the body to begin to break down and destroy its ability to break down and destroy cells and tissues that aren't healthy. So it's when the immune system is able to destroy, remove, and clear cancer cells from the body. So the worst case scenario is to eat a ton of protein all throughout the day from 7 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, a lot of animal protein. Therefore, we are stimulating so much mTOR, so much tissue growth, and so much toxic debris in the body, it's creating a breeding ground for disease. Okay, so this is why on a plant-based diet with a decent, strong digestion, getting sufficient protein through natural sources like beans, like seeds, nuts, and the use of, if you like, healthy protein powders. And I'll talk about free amino acids in a minute. So there are definitely ways to get sufficient protein on a plant-based diet. And you will be stimulating mTOR, but what we're finding is that the overstimulation of mTOR is far less likely on a plant-based diet. The plant proteins don't stimulate these very large spikes in mTOR. So therefore, it does indicate that a plant-based diet is much more likely to be preventive of heart disease and cancer. Okay, so that's the good news for the plant-based eaters. The bad news is that sometimes vegans, and just some vegans, I'm not talking about all vegans, but some people who come from a more vegetarian vegan perspective downplay the role of protein. And they almost minimize it to a point where it's not even important. So it is important because it builds tissue. And if you see a vegan that's very, very skinny, very frail, it's probably because their either digestion is not functioning well or they're not getting enough protein. And so we're kind of back to that argument years ago, like, well, where do you get your protein? We can get plenty of protein as a vegan, as a vegetarian. We just have to eat really well. Broccoli has a lot of protein, okay? Nuts and seeds have plenty of protein. Occasionally I'll do a protein smoothie or something like that. And even grains have amino acids. Anything in life that has structure, if it has form to it, it's got protein in it. So if you eat a vegetable, you can be sure it has some amino acids in it. Eating enough calories, eating enough grains, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, you're going to get enough protein. But we have to focus on digestion as well. The next piece of it is that to take it to another level, we have to understand this mTOR, which is called anabolic. It's growth. It's helping the tissue to grow. And catabolic, which is helping the tissue to, the dead tissue to go. Okay, grow and go is what we want. And we want a balance of that. That's really, really important. And that's where intermittent fasting comes in. That's where having your last meal 6, 7 at night and not eating again till 9, 10, maybe even 12 o'clock the next day, and then even maybe once every 2 weeks, once a week, fasting the whole day or eating one meal in a 24-hour period, and that will really stimulate significantly autophagy. It gives the body a chance to detox, to cleanse, to clear unhealthy cells. And it's really interesting how science is now proving this. In Eastern medicine, or in the yoga tradition, there's something called Autophagy. And Autophagy is recommended that on I believe it's the 11th day of the waxing and waning moon, we are recommended to eat no grains, no beans, no high protein sources. In fact, for those, it's speaking to many people that are vegetarian, but if you're not vegetarian, then absolutely no meat whatsoever on those days, and eat really simple, or just drink water, or even better, don't drink anything, just fast the whole day. And if we fast for 10 hours on no water, from a yoga perspective, it's understood that we really stimulate this autophagy very strongly, and we will detox and cleanse the body from cancerous, toxic, unhealthy cells. So there's the balance between these two very important points. So I believe the consciousness of the planet will improve if we all minimize the eating animal food, especially from the horrendous slaughterhouses. They're very, very, very unhealthy environments. So I think it's across the board that it makes sense for people to either eat less meat or no meat. Now, having said that, I'm also being clear that it's really important that we eat well as vegans or as vegetarians. It's very, very important that we do eat mindfully and make sure we get good nutrition. We shouldn't just be eating bread and cookies and carbohydrates and an occasional avocado. So balancing these things out are really important. Again, if we have a strong digestion, and if there's reasons why we may have a weak digestion, there's lots of great ways to strengthen your digestion. If we strengthen the digestion, we will become better protein metabolizers, and that's really important. And then we can build tissue. Ayurveda says that animal protein is a very strong form of protein, but it's a very low class or very low grade of protein. It's not a very sophisticated protein. And that our body is designed to be able to metabolize plant proteins better, even though, for thousands of years on the planet, much of humanity has been eating a good amount of meat. Now, one thing we have to remember too, this whole paleo diet idea, there's really, it's a modern invention. Back in the old days, even in cultures, ancient times, when they ate meat, it wasn't so easy to go grab a creature and bring it back to the community and where they could eat it every day. It was usually once or twice a month if they were lucky. The rest of the time, they're eating plant-based. And so they were getting plenty of autophagy, they were getting plenty of healthy detoxification, and they were getting plenty of protein through their plant sources. And then they may have a time where they would eat meat. So this isn't really a conversation about the pros and the cons of meat eating. And like I said, as you know, I'm a plant-based proponent. However, I wanted to bring out this protein thing and flesh it out a little bit for both the plant-based eaters and the meat eaters, so that we understand either way, we have to strengthen digestion. Either way, we have to digest things properly. And if we eat too much animal protein, that's toxic. And if we don't get enough good protein, or if we don't digest it properly, that's a problem because we won't build tissue properly. Here's a little thing on collagen. I am not into collagen whatsoever. It's got like 4 amino acids. It doesn't really make sense. Your body has to break down that collagen into its separate amino acids and then reuse it. And people have this idea that we eat collagen and it just automatically attaches to our collagen and becomes collagen. That's not how it works. So to think that eating collagen is going to, give you stronger ligaments, joints, and bones, it doesn't work that way. We need all the amino acids to build tissue in the body, and that's how it works. So those are some points that I wanted to make. Mtor, look it up. Autophagy, look it up. Intermittent fasting, look it up. One thing I'd like to mention before I close is that for those that really have a hard time metabolizing or digesting protein, there are these products, very good products, that are made up of what's called free amino acids. And there's two companies in particular that I really like. One is PM International, and one is called Body Health. And these products are such that basically you're taking either a powder or a tablet, and your body, they're already broken down into their amino acids. There's basically no digestion that needs to take place. So for people that are struggling with protein metabolism, or if you're a vegan or vegetarian and you want to add more very, very clean protein to your diet, or if you're an athlete, you want to add extremely clean, almost no oxidative stress, almost no negatives from none, really, from taking this stuff, because your body utilizes it easily, efficiently, and effortlessly. It's 40 times more potent than whey protein, or some of these other protein powders for sure. So it's within 20 minutes, it's in your bloodstream. Many athletes use it, but it's fantastic for vegans or vegetarians who feel like they would like to up their protein levels, especially if they're being physical or athletic. Or many people who eat meat, like I said, if they're eating too much meat and you want to decrease your animal intake and get a very clean source so that you're not putting stress on your body, you're not building mTOR, because the pure aminos only very slightly increase mTOR, and if you take them on a fasting state, they increase it very little, and the autophagy continues, which is very unusual when you're taking any source of protein. So it's really cool stuff. So if anybody wants to know more about that, you can contact me or private message me. All right, so I think that's it for tonight. Look up autophagy, look up mTOR, look up pure aminos, PM International. You can email me about that or private message me about those free amino acids, which are really cool. All right, thanks everybody. And if you have any questions, private message me. I'm happy to discuss more with you. Thank you. And if you have any thoughts, please share them. All right, have a good night.